I never thought I would be pushed by someone I once called family. I remember the fall, the cold steps, the silence that followed. What hurts more than bruises is the feeling of being unwanted in your own family. People saw me as an old woman, quiet and kind, but they never looked deeper. They did not see my strength. They did not see the life I had lived. I stayed silent for too long, but when she took everything from me, my place, my dignity, my peace, I stood up, not with anger, but with something stronger. Dignity, power, grace. And she never even noticed what she had lost, until the money dried up and the phone stopped ringing. This is my story. It is not only about pain, it is about rising. And if you have ever felt invisible, I hope you hear your own strength in mine. Before we jump back in, tell us where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Eleanor Blake. I am 68 years old, and I have lived in the same house for almost 40 years. It is a quiet, brick house at the edge of a small town in Oregon. Trees line the sidewalk outside, and in springtime, pink blossoms fall like confetti on the ground. That street has seen the first steps of my son, Daniel. It has seen birthdays, goodbyes, arguments, and Christmas lights that stayed up too long. My days are simple. I wake up early, always before the sun. Old habits from raising a child never leave you, even when your child becomes a man. I make a cup of tea, open the window just a little, and let the cool morning air in. It reminds me that I am still here, still breathing, still capable of quiet joy. I clean slowly. Not because I must, but because there is something peaceful about folding laundry in silence, or wiping down the kitchen table I once used to help Daniel with his homework. That table has scratches from toy cars and old cookie crumbs in its corners. I never mind them. They are part of my life. Sometimes I talk to the photos on the wall. My late husband, Robert, smiles back at me from an old black and white picture. He was tall and calm, the kind of man who could fix anything but never hurried through life. We were married for 36 years before cancer took him away. Even now, I sometimes wait for his footsteps when the house creaks at night. Daniel moved out many years ago, of course. He now lives in the city, about 45 minutes away. He has a wife named Clara. She is beautiful, always dressed well, always polite. But I do not know her very well. There is a wall between us that I cannot explain. She calls me Eleanor, never mom or mother. At first, I thought it was respect. Later, I wondered if it was distance. Daniel visits with her once every few weeks. They never stay long. Clara usually sits with her phone in one hand and a polite smile on her face. Daniel talks about work, always about work. He is busy, very busy. I nod. I listen. I try to hide the part of me that misses our real conversations, the kind we used to have when he was 10 years old and asked me if clouds ever cried. I do not complain. I have food. I have warmth. I have books. I volunteer at the library on Thursdays, helping young children find picture books. Some of them remind me of Daniel at that age, curious, full of questions. One little girl asked me last week why the moon followed her home. I told her the truth. Because it likes you, the librarian smiled at me. She once said, "Eleanor, you have a way with people. You are gentle." I held those words close, even though they were simple. Kindness feels rare these days. Every Sunday, I bake. Usually apple pie or banana bread. I leave slices at the church office, or I bring them to Mrs. Daly next door. She is 81 and does not go out much. We drink tea together sometimes. We talk about recipes, about television shows, about nothing and everything. Her eyes are sharp, and her stories are even sharper. So yes, my life is simple, but it is not empty. I feel the seasons. I notice the way the wind shifts in October. I know when a bird has returned early for spring. I find peace in little things, the smell of fresh laundry, the sound of a neighbor's dog, the feel of my favorite chair near the window. At night, I write in my journal. Just a few lines. Something I saw. Something I felt. A memory that rose up from nowhere. But I would be lying if I said I never felt lonely. Or invisible. Sometimes it seems like life moves forward without me. Like I'm standing still, holding onto old memories while everyone else rushes into new ones. Still, I never expected what was coming, because even the quietest lives can be shaken. And as I stood in my kitchen that evening, spoon in hand, waiting for the oven timer to ring, I felt it go a strange silence behind me, not the peaceful kind, the kind that feels like a storm waiting to begin. The silence behind me lingered longer than it should have. It was early evening. I had just taken the casserole out of the oven. The smell of rosemary and roasted vegetables filled the kitchen. The windows were fogged slightly from the warmth, inside and outside. The sky was already dark. It was peaceful. Almost too peaceful. Daniel and Clara were supposed to arrive any minute. I had spent the whole day preparing the house. I made their favorite dishes, even though I was not sure they were still favorites. I placed fresh flowers in the vase on the table. I even brought out the good plates. Not the ones I use alone. The ones I saved for guests and family dinners. But something in the air felt off. I looked around. Everything looked perfect. Yet, I felt unsettled. Like the house was too clean. Too still. I walked over to the hallway mirror and checked my reflection. My sweater was soft blue, the one Robert used to say brought out the color in my eyes. I had even put on a bit of lipstick, just to look cheerful. The clock on the wall ticked slowly. 5 minutes past 6. They were late, but not unusually so. Daniel often texted when they were running behind. I checked my phone. No messages. Still, my hand did not relax. My fingers held onto the edge of the table a little too tightly. At 6:20, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, wiped my hands on my apron, and walked toward the front door. I opened it with a smile. "Hi, Mom," Daniel said, stepping in with his usual half-hug. Clara followed. She looked tired. Her eyes scanned the room quickly, and her mouth pressed into a small line. She held her purse close to her side like she was not planning to stay long. I stepped back and said, "Come in, please. The food is warm." Clara gave a small nod but did not smile. They sat at the table, and I began serving the food. Daniel talked about traffic, about a meeting that went too long, about a new client he could not name. I listened carefully, nodding when I was supposed to. But I noticed something. He never looked me in the eye. Clara barely spoke. She pushed food around her plate. I asked her how work was going, and she answered with one word. Busy. No details, no questions in return. There was a distance in her tone that I could not name. Not rudeness, not coldness exactly. Something else. Like I was a stranger in my own kitchen. I tried to keep the mood light. I told a small story about the children at the library, about the girl who thought the moon followed her home. Daniel smiled politely, but it faded quickly. Clara said nothing. After dinner, Daniel offered to help with dishes, but only for a moment. They were in a hurry, he said. Clara had a call, a video meeting, something important. I said I understood, but my voice sounded too soft. Even to me, as Awe and they prepared to leave, Clara stepped into the hallway. I followed to hand her a container with some leftover pie. She looked at it, paused, then said, "That is all right. We are trying to eat cleaner now." Her words stung more than they should have. I nodded and watched her place her coat over her arm without putting it on. Daniel hugged me again. "Thanks, Mom," he said. But the hug felt lighter this time, less present. I watched from the doorway as they walked to their car. Clara got in quickly. Daniel paused for a second. He looked up at me and gave a little wave. Then they were gone. The silence returned. But this time, it did not feel peaceful. It felt like something had been left unsaid. Something was moving in the space between us, quiet but strong. A tension I had not noticed before. Or maybe I had noticed it and ignored it. I sat back down at the table. The casserole dish was still half full. The flowers looked too bright in the soft yellow light. The good plates sat there waiting to be washed, but I could not move. I looked at Robert's photo on the wall, and for the first time in a very long time I whispered, "Something feels strange." I did not sleep much that night. My bed felt cold, even though I was covered with my thickest quilt, the kind with the deep blue stitching that Robert always said reminded him of the ocean. I closed my eyes again and again, but my mind would not let go of the strange feeling I had after dinner. I kept seeing Clara's face, that flat expression, the way she looked past me, like I was a faded picture in the background, the way she refused the pie, not because she was full, but because she did not want anything I made, or at least, that was how it felt. Was I imagining it? Was I being sensitive? I sat up in bed and reached for the glass of water on my nightstand. It tasted like silence. I stared at the wall across from me, the one with all the old photographs. Daniel as a baby, his curls tight and wild, his tiny hand wrapped around my finger. The picture of us on his graduation day, when he hugged me so tight I could not breathe. And now, he could barely look me in the eye. I pressed my hand to my chest. My heart was beating faster than it should have. I tried to breathe deeply, but the air felt too thick. Why did Clara seem so uncomfortable in my home? What had I done? The next morning, I tried to shake off the confusion. I cleaned the dishes from the night before and watered the plants in the sunroom. I opened all the windows to let in fresh air. It was a bright morning, the kind that used to make me feel hopeful, but that strange heaviness still sat in my chest. I picked up my phone to call Daniel, just to ask if everything was all right, just to hear his voice. But my thumb hovered over the button. I put the phone down. What if I was imagining things? What if it was just a bad day for them? Maybe Clara was tired. Maybe Daniel was distracted by work. It was possible. Still, I could not ignore how different everything felt lately. There were fewer calls, fewer visits, and when they did come, Clara never seemed happy to see me. I remembered last Thanksgiving, how she arrived with store-bought mashed potatoes even though I had already made some. She said it was just in case mine were too salty again. Laughed at the time. But now I was not sure it was a joke. And Christmas, I barely saw them. Daniel said they were going on a short trip to the mountains, but I saw the photos online. They were at a spa resort. I did not say anything. I just sent a little heart emoji on the post, even though it stung. Was Clara pulling him away from me, or was Daniel the one pulling away, and Clara was just following? I felt like I was walking through a fog. Nothing was clear. Everything felt unsure. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. The sky was pale, the clouds like soft cotton, drifting slowly. I tried to calm my thoughts. I told myself, it is probably nothing, but the ache did not leave. Later that day, I went to the library to return a few books. The children's section was quiet, the shelves freshly dusted. I always found comfort there. The smell of old pages, the bright colors, the drawings of smiling animals on the wall. I talked with Karen, the librarian. She asked how my weekend was. I smiled and said it was lovely, but inside I hesitated. I almost told her the truth. I almost said, I feel like something is wrong with my son. But I stopped myself. What if I was wrong? What if it really was just in my head? I walked home, slowly, my steps heavy. Every corner of my house felt familiar, but distant. Like the warmth I had poured into it for decades was slowly slipping away. I tried to hold on to logic, to reason. I tried to tell myself families go through phases. That love sometimes just hides for a while. But that night, when I sat alone at the dinner table with leftovers on a cold plate, I could not shake the feeling. Something had changed, and I did not know why. The next few days passed slowly. I tried to keep myself busy. I cleaned the hallway closet. I sorted through old boxes in the attic. I even made a batch of strawberry jam, the kind Daniel used to love as a boy. But nothing could keep my thoughts still. I kept thinking about Clara. She had only been part of our family for a few years, and in the beginning, I truly wanted to welcome her. I had told myself over and over again, give her a chance. She is just getting used to everything. And I did. I made space for her in our holiday traditions. I changed the way I set the table to include her style. I even stopped making Daniel's favorite mushroom stuffing because she said mushrooms made her feel weird. I listened. I cared. I tried. But lately, it felt like I was invisible in my own family. Still, part of me wanted to believe that Clara meant no harm. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe she did not know how to talk to me. She had always been a little distant, but I had assumed she was simply shy. That afternoon, I decided to call her. I sat in the kitchen with my phone in my hand, staring at her name on the screen. My fingers felt heavy. I was not sure what I wanted to say. I just knew I had to try. When she picked up, her voice was soft, but not warm. Hello? Hi, Clara. It is Margaret, I said. I hope I am not calling at a bad time. There was a pause. No, it is fine, she replied. What is going on? I just wanted to check in. I noticed you seemed a bit quiet the other day. She hesitated. I was just tired. It was a long week, she said. I nodded, though she could not see me. I understand. Life can be tiring sometimes. Another pause. Yes, it can. I waited, hoping she might say something more. But she did not, so I tried again. Clara, I hope you know you are always welcome here. This home is your home too. I want you to feel comfortable. Thank you, she said quickly. I appreciate that. Her words were polite, but there was something cold in her tone. Something distant. Like there was a door between us that she had no interest in opening. Still, I pushed forward. I was thinking of having a small lunch next weekend. Nothing fancy. Just a few family recipes. Maybe Daniel can bring you over, and we can all sit together for a bit. She was quiet for a moment. I will have to check our schedule, she said. Daniel has been very busy, and I have a few things going on too. Of course, I replied gently. No pressure at all. I wanted to say more, but I stopped myself. I did not want to sound desperate. I did not want to beg for time with my own family. So I thanked her, wished her a good afternoon, and ended the call. When I put the phone down, my hands felt cold. I had reached out. I had tried. But something inside me felt smaller now. I sat there for a while, watching the light shift across the floor. I remembered how, when Daniel was young, I used to lie on that very floor with him. We would build puzzles and read storybooks. I remembered the way his laughter filled the house, warm and easy. And now, silence. I wanted to trust Clara. I wanted to believe that one day we would find common ground, that one day we might even become close. But trust is not just about words. It is about feeling safe with someone. And right now, I did not feel safe. I felt uncertain, like I was walking on glass every time we spoke. Still, I told myself I had done the right thing. I had opened the door. Whether she chose to walk through it or not, that was up to her. That evening, I sat on the porch and watched the sun go down. The sky turned gold, then soft pink. A breeze brushed my cheek, and I closed my eyes. I whispered to myself, I want to trust her, and maybe one day I will. The following week moved like heavy clouds across a gray sky. Everything felt slow, tired, still. Daniel had not called. Clara had not messaged. I tried not to take it personally, but the silence hurt in ways I could not fully explain. When your child stops reaching out, it feels like being erased slowly, one day at a time. To distract myself, I went to the small library in town. It was one of those quiet places where you could hear the tick of the clock on the wall and the soft shuffle of paper being turned. I used to bring Daniel there when he was in second grade. He loved the books about trains. He would make the sounds while turning the pages, and everyone in the room would smile. That memory stayed with me. I was browsing through a shelf of novels when I heard a voice I had not heard in years. Margaret? Is that you? I turned and saw her. It was Emily Larson. We had been friends once, good friends. We used to share stories over tea and trade recipes during the holidays. But life had pulled us in different directions. Her husband had taken a job in another town, and we slowly lost touch. Now here she was, standing in front of me, holding a biography and wearing the same warm smile I remembered. Emily, I said, surprised. It has been so long. We hugged gently, the way women do when years have passed but something still remains. We sat in the corner of the library near the tall windows and spoke in quiet voices. She told me her husband had passed, away last year. I told her I had been spending more time alone lately. Somehow it was easy to talk to her again. She asked about Daniel. I told her he had married a woman named Clara. And then, something changed in her expression. Clara Bell? She asked carefully. Yes, I said. Do you know her? Emily nodded slowly. I think so. She worked at the dental office across town a few years ago. My cousin worked there too. I tilted my head. Oh, what was she like back then? Emily hesitated. She looked down at her hands. I do not want to speak badly of anyone, she said gently. But my cousin had a difficult time with her. Said she was charming when she wanted to be. But she could also be very cold, controlling, and sometimes even cruel, especially when she thought someone was in her way. My heart started to beat faster. She used to say one thing and do another, Emily added. Always smiling in front of people, but behind closed doors, it was a different story. I felt my hands go still in my lap. Emily looked at me with kind eyes. I am not saying people cannot change, Margaret. They can. But sometimes they do not. And I just thought you should know. We sat in silence for a moment. The truth is, I already knew something was wrong. I had felt it in my bones. In the way Clara looked at me. In the way she held Daniel's arm like it was a shield, not a comfort. In the way I was made to feel like a guest in my own family. But hearing it from someone else made it real. It was not just in my head. There was something beneath the surface. A warning had been spoken. After we parted ways, I walked slowly back to my car. The wind had picked up, and leaves were dancing across the parking lot like whispers on the pavement. I sat in the driver's seat and stared out at the trees. I remembered how, years ago, I had told Daniel to always listen when something felt wrong, to never ignore that quiet voice inside. And yet here I was, doing just that. I gripped the steering wheel and whispered, "Please let me be wrong." But deep down, I feared I was not. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing Emily's words again and again. She could be very cold. She used to say one thing and do another. She made people feel small. I did not want to believe it. But I could no longer ignore the feeling in my chest. Warning had come, and now I had to decide whether to listen. The next morning, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and tried to quiet the noise in my head. I washed my face slowly. I brushed my hair carefully. I went through every step of my routine with the same precision I had followed for years. I told myself, "You are overthinking. Let it go." I tried to believe it. I told myself that people change, that Emily had only heard old stories, that Clara had simply been misunderstood. Perhaps Clara had grown since then. Perhaps marriage had softened her. Perhaps I was just being too sensitive. I made a cup of tea and sat by the window. The morning light filtered through the curtains and warmed the hardwood floor. It was quiet in the house. Too quiet, really. But I tried to take comfort in it. I opened the small calendar by my side and began to write down my plans for the week. Monday, laundry. Tuesday, groceries. Wednesday, call Daniel. I stared at that last line. My pen hovered for a moment. Should I? He had not called me since that awkward lunch. But I missed him. I missed my son's voice, the way he used to laugh at his own bad jokes, the way he used to call me when he was stuck on a recipe. I missed the sound of "Hi, Mom" on the other end of the phone. So I picked up my phone and called him. It rang 4 times, then 5, and then I heard Clara's voice. She had answered. "Hello?" she said flatly. "Oh. Hello, Clara. It is Margaret," I said gently. "I was just calling to speak to Daniel." There was a pause. "He is in the shower," she replied without warmth. "Could you let him know I called?" I asked. Another pause. "Sure," she said. Then she hung up. No goodbye. No, "Take care." Just the cold sound of disconnection. Held the phone in my hand for a long time afterward. I wanted to believe she had simply been busy or distracted. But the tone of her voice, tight, annoyed, distant, clung to my skin like a chill. I went about the rest of the day pretending I was fine. I folded laundry, I cleaned the kitchen. I walked to the mailbox and waved to Mrs. Hartley across the street. Everything looked normal from the outside. But inside, my thoughts kept circling like a bird that had lost its way. What if Emily was right? What if Clara was not the woman I had hoped she was? Still, I told myself to stop thinking this way. I reminded myself that every relationship has growing pains, that perhaps I had not been as welcoming as I should have been. Perhaps I had judged Clara too quickly. I did not want to cause a rift in my family. I did not want to believe that the woman my son had chosen could be cruel. So I pushed the doubts down. I buried them beneath busy hands and careful routines. The next day, I baked banana bread. I wrapped it in foil and tied it with a small ribbon. Then I drove to Daniel and Clara's house. I thought, maybe this will be a small olive branch. Maybe if I show kindness, things will soften. When I arrived, Clara opened the door. She looked surprised. "Oh," she said. "I did not know you were coming." "I thought I would drop this off," I said, handing her the warm loaf. Banana bread. I remembered it was Daniel's favorite. She took it without smiling. "Thank you," she said, but her voice was flat. Her eyes did not meet mine. "Is he home?" I asked. "No," she replied. "He is working late." There was silence between us. I stood there holding my purse, hoping for some warmth, some invitation to come inside. But none came. "Well, tell him I said hello," I said quietly. "I will," she replied, and then closed the door. Just like that. No kindness, no connection. I stood on the porch for a moment, staring at the door that had just shut me out. I told myself, again, do not make this bigger than it is. But my heart ached, because deep down, I knew that I was not imagining it. Something was wrong. Still, I tried to ignore it. Because sometimes it is easier to pretend. Easier than facing what you do not want to admit. It is strange how much a person's eyes can say when their mouth says nothing at all. Clara never raised her voice at me. She never insulted me directly. But her eyes spoke a language that was impossible to ignore. That Sunday, Daniel invited me over for dinner. He had texted in the morning, saying, "Clara is making roast chicken. Come by around 5?" My heart lifted when I read it. It had been a while since he reached out on his own. I arrived at 4:55 with a small bottle of olive oil I had brought back from a coastal trip last spring. I thought it would be a nice gift. Something thoughtful, something small. A peace offering, even if no war had been declared. Clara opened the door. Her face held that same polite smile that did not touch her eyes. "Hello, Margaret," she said. Her voice was pleasant, but her eyes looked past me, not at me. She turned and walked toward the kitchen without another word. I followed, holding the bottle awkwardly in both hands. Daniel greeted me with a warm hug. "Hi, Mom," he said, and for a moment I felt like everything was okay again. Clara kept her back to us as she stirred something on the stove. Her movements were sharp and quick, not relaxed. Her shoulders were tight, and I could sense the tension in her body like a current in the room. "I brought this for you," I said, placing the olive oil on the counter. "It is from my trip last year." Clara looked at it briefly. "Oh," she said. "Thanks." That was it. No smile, no curiosity, no "how lovely" or "I will use it tonight." Just one word. Dinner was served with precision. Beautiful plates, perfectly cooked food, folded napkins. Everything looked perfect. But the silence at the table was heavy. Daniel tried to carry the conversation, asking me about my garden, my books, even the weather. But Clara mostly stayed quiet. When I spoke, she listened with a look that felt like judgment. When I shared a story about a neighbor's dog who had chased a squirrel into my living room, Daniel laughed. Clara only stared at me with a look that was not unkind, but not kind either. Her lips pressed into a tight line. Her head tilted ever so slightly. She looked at me like I was an interruption, like I was something to tolerate. At one point, Daniel asked me to pass the salt, and I did. Our hands touched briefly, and he smiled. Clara's eyes flicked to our hands and then to my face. The look she gave me then was sharp, quiet, but cutting. She did not say anything. She did not need to. I saw everything in that look. It said, "This is my home now." It said, "You are only here because he invited you." It said, "You are not as important as you used to be." After dinner, I offered to help with the dishes. Clara shook her head. "We have a system," she said. So I stood beside Daniel while he dried his hands. I thanked him for dinner, and we spoke for a moment about a movie he wanted to see. And again, I felt her eyes, watching, measuring. We said our goodbyes at the door. Daniel hugged me again. "Let us do this again next week," he said. I nodded, holding on to that offer like a thread. Clara stood just behind him. She gave a small wave, but her eyes did not smile. On the way home, I drove slowly. The city lights blurred as I blinked against the tight feeling in my chest. It was not just what Clara did or said, it was how she looked at me. There was something beneath the surface, something quiet and cold. I did not want to believe it. But that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her face would not leave my mind. And I thought to myself, you can hide a lot behind a smile, but the eyes, those always tell the truth. There is a moment when silence becomes too loud to bear. That moment came for me on a rainy Wednesday afternoon, 2 weeks after the dinner. I had been carrying a weight inside me, made of doubt, confusion, and something unspoken that I did not know how to name, but I knew where it came from, and I knew who I needed to face. I called Clara. Hello, Clara, I said, trying to sound calm. Are you home this afternoon? There was a pause on the line. Then her voice, cool and even. Yes, Daniel is at work. I nodded, though she could not see me. I would like to stop by, if you have a moment. All right, she said. Sure. When I arrived, she opened the door and stepped aside. No smile, no welcome. Just the sound of the rain behind me and her eyes looking straight through me. Stepped in and took off my coat. The house smelled faintly of lemon and lavender. Everything looked neat. Everything looked cold. Would you like tea? She asked as we walked into the kitchen. No, I said softly. Thank you. She sat across from me at the dining table. The same table where I had eaten roast chicken. The same table where she had watched me without warmth. I looked at her. She met my eyes, unblinking. Clara, I began, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. I want to ask you something, and I ask this with respect. I only want honesty. She said nothing, just waited. I took a breath. Have I done something to upset you? Her eyes did not change. Her lips did not move. Still, I waited. Finally, she spoke. No, she said. You have not done anything specific. The words hung in the air. But something is wrong, I said. I feel it. In how you look at me, how you speak to me. I have felt it for a while now. Clara leaned back slightly in her chair. I am not trying to be unkind, she said. I just prefer space. Space? I asked gently. She nodded. Yes, space to build our life, to have our home feel like ours. I let her words settle. Then I spoke again. I understand that. I truly do. But I want to be part of Daniel's life. Not to interfere, not to control. Just to be present. She looked away for a moment, then back at me. I know Daniel loves you, she said. And that is fine. But your presence is strong. I blinked. Strong? You speak often of the past, she said. You talk about how things used to be, how you raised him, how he used to rely on you. I felt a tightness in my throat. That is because I love him, I said. And I miss him. Clara tilted her head slightly. I know, but I need to be his present, not just you. Her words were not cruel, but they stung. I never wanted to replace anything, I said. Only to stay close. I never expected you to feel pushed aside. Clara's eyes softened slightly, but only for a second. I think we are different people, she said. And I think we want different things. I looked down at my hands. I see, I said. There was a long pause. Only the sound of the rain tapping gently against the windows. I do not want to fight with you, Clara. I said. But I also do not want to feel like an intruder in my own son's life. She did not respond, and in that silence, I understood something. She did not hate me. But she also did not want me close, not in the way I had hoped. I stood up slowly. "Thank you for your honesty," I said. She nodded. I walked to the door, put on my coat, and opened my umbrella. As I stepped into the rain, I felt both lighter and heavier. At least now I knew. She would never say the words directly. But her truth had been spoken. And sometimes, the hardest part of growing older is realizing that love does not always guarantee a place. That night, after I left Clara's house, I could not sleep. My mind was alive with thoughts, spinning in circles like a storm that refused to calm. The rain outside was soft now, but inside me, a restless noise echoed louder than any storm. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows move in the dim light. I tried to focus on the quiet, but my mind kept replaying the conversation with Clara. Her words stayed with me, clear and sharp. She said I speak too much of the past, I thought. Maybe she is right. Maybe I have held on too tightly. I wondered if I had made mistakes. Was I too present? Did I try to control things that were not mine to control? The more I thought, the heavier my heart became. I tried to imagine Daniel's life without me. What did it look like? Was I a part of it anymore? Or was I fading away like a shadow at dusk? The questions were painful. I did not want to feel invisible. But how could I not when Clara looked at me as if I was a stranger? I thought about the days when Daniel was a child, when I would hold his small hands and tell him stories before bedtime, when he would laugh at my silly jokes and hug me tight. Those memories were warm and bright. They were my treasure. But now, it felt like those days belonged to another lifetime. A life I was no longer part of. I knew I needed to talk to someone. I needed to share this storm inside me. But I was afraid. Afraid that if I spoke, my sadness would become real and too heavy to carry. So I stayed silent. Instead, I took long walks at night. The cool air against my face helped me think. I walked through quiet streets, past empty parks and closed shops. The world was asleep, but my mind was awake. Each step I took was like a question. Each breath I drew was like a hope. I thought about my own life, beyond Daniel and Clara. About the dreams I once had, the things I wanted to do but never did. I asked myself if I had lost sight of who I was. It was strange, this feeling. To be surrounded by people but still feel so alone. To be loved, yet not feel that love. The more I thought, the more I realized that I needed to find myself again. Not just as Daniel's mother or Clara's presence, but as me, Helen. I opened a small notebook that I kept by my bed. I had not written in it for months. The pages were empty, waiting. I took my pen and wrote the first words. I am lost, but I want to be found. Writing those words gave me a small relief. It was as if putting my feelings on paper made them lighter. I wrote about the dinner, about Clara's cold eyes, about the pain I did not want to show. I wrote about Daniel and how much I missed him, how I wished things could be different. After I wrote, I closed the notebook and placed it carefully on the nightstand. The storm inside me was still there, but somehow it felt less overwhelming. The next morning, I woke up early. The sky was gray, and the air smelled fresh after the rain. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. I watched the world wake, but as I sipped my tea, I promised myself something. I promised that I would not let this sadness define me, that I would find strength in my pain and courage in my tears. I thought about the future, about the choices I could make, about the possibility Of healing, it was not going to be easy. The path ahead was uncertain and steep, but I was ready to take the first step. That day, I called an old friend. Someone I trusted. Someone who would listen without judgment. "Hello, Susan," I said, my voice shaky but determined. "Helen, it is so good to hear from you," she replied warmly. We talked for hours. I told her everything. About Clara, Daniel, and the storm inside me. Susan did not try to fix things. She just listened, and that made all the difference. By the time we ended the call, I felt a little lighter, less alone. I understood that the road to healing would be slow, that I would have to face difficult truths and painful memories. But I also understood something more important. I was not broken. I was human, and I still had the power to change my story. As I closed my eyes that night, I did not feel so afraid anymore. I was beginning to believe in myself again. The days after my conversation with Susan passed quietly. I tried to keep myself busy, but the quiet pain inside me was always there, like a shadow that followed me everywhere. It was not loud or dramatic. It was gentle and constant. A soft ache that settled deep inside my chest. I spent many mornings sitting by the window, watching the rain fall softly outside. The sound of raindrops tapping on the glass was comforting in a strange way. It matched the slow rhythm of my thoughts and feelings. Sometimes, I would let tears fall quietly, without shame or hurry. I did not want anyone to see me like that. I wanted to be strong. But the tears were honest. They spoke the words my voice could not say. I thought about the life I had lived, about the years spent raising Daniel, the sacrifices I made, and the dreams I put on hold. I felt the weight of all those moments. Some were filled with joy, others with pain. Now, they all seemed wrapped in silence. One afternoon, I took out an old photo album. I opened it carefully, as if touching something fragile and precious. The picture showed a younger version of myself, a smiling woman with hope in her eyes, holding a little boy who was full of life and laughter. Looking at those pictures made me feel a mix of happiness and sadness. Happiness for the love we shared. Sadness for what we had lost. I remembered the nights when Daniel would climb into my bed, scared of the dark. I would hold him close and sing lullabies until he fell asleep. Those were moments of pure connection, moments when nothing else mattered. Now the house felt emptier. The laughter was gone. The warmth was fading. I realized that pain could be quiet and still. It did not have to shout to be real. Sometimes, it lived in the small spaces between words, in the silence of a shared room, in the empty chair at the dinner table. That night, I wrote in my notebook again. This time, I wrote about the quiet pain, about how it did not need to be fixed right away, how it was okay to feel lost sometimes. Writing helped me see my pain differently. It was not a weakness. It was a part of my journey, a sign that I cared deeply and loved fully. I knew I was not alone in this feeling. Many people carried quiet pains that no one else could see. And that thought gave me some comfort. Slowly, I started to find small ways to care for myself. I went for walks in the park, feeling the soft grass under my feet and the fresh air on my face. I listened to music that made me feel alive, even if just for a little while. I even tried to cook again, something I had avoided since the dinner with Clara. I chose simple recipes that reminded me of better times. As I prepared the food, I felt a small spark of joy. It was not the same as before, but it was a start. One afternoon, I met an old neighbor for tea. We talked about simple things, the weather, the garden, books we had read. Her kindness was gentle, like a balm to my heart. I realized that healing did not need to be dramatic. It could come in quiet moments of connection and self-care. But even with these small steps, The pain stayed. It was still there, waiting patiently, a reminder that some wounds take time to heal. I did not try to run from it anymore. Instead, I welcomed it as a visitor. I listened to what it had to say. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with soft colors, I sat on the porch and breathed deeply. I felt tired, but also a little stronger, a little more ready to face the days ahead. I knew that this quiet pain was not the end of my story. It was just a chapter that I would write with honesty and courage. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was learning to walk it, one quiet step at a time. The quiet pain I felt was growing stronger by the day. I knew that I could not live with so many questions in my mind. I needed an answer. I needed to know the truth. I remembered the moment when Clara pushed me down the stairs. The shock of falling, the pain in my body, and the cold look in her eyes. I had wanted to believe that it was a mistake, a moment of anger that she would later regret. But now, I was not so sure. Daniel, my son, seemed distant. He avoided looking at me. His silence was louder than any words he could say. I wanted to talk to him, to understand, but every time I tried, he changed the subject or left the room. That evening, after dinner, I decided I could wait no longer. I found Daniel sitting alone in the living room, staring at the television but not really watching it. I sat down beside him and took a deep breath. "Daniel," I said softly, "I need to talk to you. Please, can you answer me honestly?" He looked at me with tired eyes. There was something heavy in his expression, something I did not understand yet. "I want to know why Clara did what she did," I continued. "Why she pushed me down the stairs, and why you have not said anything." Daniel sighed deeply. "Mom," he said quietly, "it is not easy to explain. You do not want to hear the truth." "I want to hear everything," I said firmly. "Please, do not keep me in the dark any longer." He hesitated, then started to speak. "Clara is under a lot of pressure. The restaurant is failing. She did not tell you because she was ashamed. She thought if you knew, you would be disappointed." Felt my heart tighten. The restaurant was the business Daniel and Clara had opened together. I had helped them financially, but I never expected to hear that it was failing. "Why did she push me?" I asked. "That was dangerous. She could have hurt me badly." Daniel looked away. "She was scared. She did not mean to hurt you. It was an accident. She was angry and frustrated. I am sorry, Mom." I wanted to believe him, but the pain in my body told me otherwise. This was not the first time I had felt pushed aside and ignored in their lives. I had given them everything, yet I felt like a stranger in my own family. "Daniel," I said quietly, "I need more than apologies. I need honesty and respect. I cannot live like this, not knowing where I stand with you and Clara." He nodded slowly. "I understand. I will try to be more open with you." That night, I lay awake thinking about our conversation. The truth was painful, but it was also a relief. I was no longer trapped in the uncertainty of silence. I realized that asking for answers was not a sign of weakness. It was a way to take back my power, to stop hiding behind fear and confusion. In the days that followed, I tried to speak more openly with Daniel. Sometimes the conversations were difficult. Sometimes they ended in tears or silence. But at least they were real. I also reached out to Clara. I wanted to understand her better, to see if there was a way to heal the wounds between us. We met at the kitchen table one afternoon. The room was quiet, except for the ticking of the clock. "Clara," I said gently, "I want to forgive you. But first, I need to understand why." She looked at me with eyes full of regret. "I was scared," she admitted. "I felt like I was failing in the restaurant and in our marriage. I did not know how to ask for help. When I saw you, I felt anger I could not control." Her words surprised me. I had not known how deeply her fears affected her. "I am sorry for what I did," she said. "I never wanted to hurt you." I nodded. "Thank you for telling me. I want us to find a way forward." That moment was the beginning of a slow healing process. It did not erase the past, but it opened a door to understanding and hope. I learned that sometimes people act out of fear and pain, not because they do not love you. That did not make the actions right, but it helped me find compassion. I also learned that asking for answers is brave. It is a step toward healing, even when the truth hurts. Now, I felt a new strength inside me, a strength born from facing the pain and not running away from it. I knew there were still challenges ahead. There would be days of doubt and sadness, but I was ready to face them. I was no longer silent. I needed answers, and I was finding them. The truth came to me slowly, like the first rays of sunlight after a long night. I finally understood what had been happening beneath the surface, the secrets that had been kept from me. It was painful, but also necessary. Without this understanding, I could never move forward. After the conversation with Daniel and Clara, I spent many restless nights thinking. I wanted to believe that things would get better, but part of me feared the worst. I wondered if my family had been hiding more than just the troubles with the restaurant. One afternoon, I decided to visit the accountant who had managed their business finances. I wanted to see the real picture for myself. Sitting in a small office filled with papers and numbers, I listened carefully as the accountant explained the situation. "The restaurant's debts are much larger than anyone expected," he said. "Clara tried to handle everything alone. She did not tell Daniel the full truth, and Daniel did not tell you." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. They had kept me in the dark because they thought I would be upset. Instead, the silence made me feel even more alone. "Why did they not ask for help?" I asked quietly. The accountant shrugged. Fear, pride, and shame. They did not want to admit failure. Clara especially was afraid to lose control. That word, control, struck me deeply. I realized Clara's anger and frustration were not only about the business, but also about feeling powerless in her own life. As I left the office, I understood that the accident on the stairs was more than just a moment of anger. It was a cry for help, a sign of the pain Clara was hiding inside. At home, I sat quietly and reflected on everything. I thought about Daniel's silence and Clara's anger. I thought about my own feelings of betrayal and confusion. I finally understood that we were all struggling in our own ways. We were trapped by fear and secrets, unable to reach out to each other. That night, I wrote a letter to Clara. I told her that I wanted to help, that I was ready to listen without judgment. I told her that I loved her, even if things were difficult. The next day, Clara came to me with tears in her eyes. She apologized again, this time with real sorrow. For the first time, I saw the vulnerable woman beneath the anger. We talked for hours, sharing our fears and hopes. I learned that Clara's family had also faced hard times, but she never told me before. She had felt alone and afraid. It was a moment of healing for both of us. We started to build a fragile trust, piece by piece. Daniel joined us later, and we made a plan to face the challenges together. We decided to be honest and open, even when it was hard. I felt a new sense of hope growing inside me. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight of secrets pressing down on my chest. I also understood something important about myself. I realized that I had been silent for too long. I had hidden my pain and fears behind a calm face. Now, I was ready to speak up, ready to ask for what I needed, ready to be part of the solution, not just a bystander. The road ahead would not be easy. We had a lot to fix, and there would be setbacks. But I was no longer afraid. I finally understood that strength comes from facing the truth, no matter how painful it may be. That understanding gave me courage, and with courage, I began to rebuild my life and my family. After the difficult conversations and the painful discoveries, I realized that I needed space. I needed time away from the chaos to think clearly. Walking away was not easy. It was one of the hardest decisions I have ever made, but sometimes, stepping back is the only way to protect yourself. The house that once felt like a safe place now felt heavy with tension. Every corner held memories that stung like small cuts. I could not breathe there anymore. I needed to find peace, even if it was far from my family. I packed a small bag, careful not to take too much. Just a few clothes, my journal, and some books. The rest could wait. My heart was heavy, but I knew this was necessary. I told Daniel and Clara that I needed to stay elsewhere for a while. They understood, though their faces showed worry and regret. I hoped this time apart would help us all heal. I found a quiet, little guest house on the edge of town. It was simple and peaceful, surrounded by trees and the soft sounds of nature. The fresh air felt like a balm to my soul. At first, the silence was strange. I was used to the noise of family life, even the arguments, but in this quiet, I could hear my own thoughts clearly for the first time in a long time. Each morning, I walked slowly through the woods nearby. I watched the sunlight filter through the leaves and listened to the birds singing. The world outside was calm, but inside, my emotions swirled like a storm. I thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the anger, the pain. But I also thought about the moments of kindness and hope. I remembered the times when my family laughed and loved. Those memories were bittersweet, but they reminded me why I wanted to heal. Sometimes tears came quietly as I sat alone. I let myself feel the sadness fully because I knew it was part of healing. Holding in pain only made it worse. I wrote in my journal every day. Writing helped me understand my feelings. It was like talking to a friend who always listened. I wrote about my fears, my hopes, and my dreams for the future. I also began to think about what I wanted for myself, beyond the family troubles. For too long, I had put others before me. Now I realized that I deserved happiness and peace too. This time away was not just about distance. It was about finding my own strength. I learned to stand on my own, even when it felt scary. Slowly, I began to see myself differently. I was not just a mother or a wife. I was a woman with her own story and her own value. The days passed gently, like soft waves washing away the hurt. I started to feel lighter, more hopeful. One afternoon, Daniel called. His voice was soft and uncertain. He said he missed me and wanted to talk when I was ready. I told him I needed more time, but appreciated his words. It was a small step, but a step toward rebuilding trust. I realized that walking away did not mean giving up. It meant taking care of myself so that I could come back stronger. I knew that someday I would return to face the challenges with new courage. But for now, this quiet time was my gift to myself. I had learned that sometimes love means letting go, even if it hurts. Walked away, but I did not leave my heart behind. I was still here, still fighting, still hoping. And that was enough for now. Even though I had walked away and found some quiet, the pain did not leave me. It stayed with me like a shadow, following me quietly wherever I went. I thought that distance would make the hurt smaller, but it did not. Sometimes it felt just as big as before, maybe even bigger. Some days, I woke up feeling tired before the day began. The ache in my chest was a dull reminder of everything I had lost, and everything I was still afraid to lose. It was strange how pain could stay even when the cause seemed far away. It was not only in my heart, it was in my mind, in my body, and even in my dreams. At night, I sometimes dreamed of that terrible moment on the stairs. Clara's angry face, the sudden shove, the sharp fall, it played over and over like a cruel film. I would wake up gasping, my heart racing, and the cold sweat on my skin reminded me that the hurt was not just in my memories. It was still real. I thought about forgiving Clara, about letting go of the anger and fear. But the pain was a wall that made forgiveness hard. How could I forgive when the wound still felt so fresh? How could I trust again when I was still afraid? During those long, quiet days, I realized that pain is not a simple thing. It is not something you can just push away or forget. Pain needs time. It needs patience and kindness, especially from yourself. I tried to be gentle with myself. I allowed myself to feel sad, angry, and lost. I cried when I needed to. I told myself that it was okay, not to be okay. I also found small moments of comfort. A warm cup of tea on a cold morning. The soft sound of rain against the window. A phone call from a friend who cared. These small things helped me carry the pain without letting it break me. Sometimes I wrote letters I never sent, words for Clara, for Daniel, and for myself. Writing helped me say what was too hard to say out loud. It was a way to hold my feelings without being overwhelmed by them. I thought about the family I once knew, and the family I hope to have again. It was painful to see the difference. I missed the laughter, the hugs, and the simple moments of peace. But I also knew that I could not go back to the way things were before, not without change. The pain reminded me of all that had happened, but it also showed me what was important. It made me realize that I deserved respect and love. It made me understand that I could not lose myself in trying to fix others. Some days, the pain was heavier than others. It felt like a weight on my shoulders, pulling me down. But even in those dark moments, I found a small light inside me, a quiet voice that said, "Keep going. You are stronger than you think." That light was hope. It was the belief that someday the pain would not feel so sharp, that someday I would smile again without feeling guilty, that someday I would find peace. I knew that healing was not a straight path. It had twists and turns, ups and downs. But I was ready to walk it, one step at a time. The pain stayed, but I did not let it stop me. I used it as a reminder of what I needed to heal and grow. I learned that pain is not weakness. It is a part of being human, and sometimes it is the beginning of something new. As I looked out at the quiet trees outside my window, I whispered to myself, "This is not the end. It is just a part of the journey." And with that thought, I took a deep breath and faced the day. There are moments when the past feels so close, it almost touches my heart. I find myself missing the times before everything changed, before the pain and betrayal. Those days seemed simpler, filled with laughter and love. Now, when I think about those times, they feel like a fragile dream, beautiful, but impossible to hold. I remember the warm sunlight in the kitchen where I used to bake with Clara when she was a child. She laughed as flour covered her small hands. I was proud of every little cake and cookie we made together. Those were days when family meant everything. It was easy to believe that love could protect us from any trouble. I missed the quiet evenings spent with Daniel, my son. He would tell me stories about his work and plans for the future. I listened carefully, happy to be a part of his world. We shared hopes and dreams, and for a moment, it felt like nothing could break us. Sometimes I look at old photographs. Their smiles remind me of the joy that once filled our home. I see myself as a younger woman, full of hope and energy. I wonder where that woman went and if I will ever find her again. Missing the past is not just about longing for good times. It is about missing the feeling of safety and trust. It is about missing the belief that family would always be there, no matter what. When Clara pushed me down the stairs, something inside me broke. It was not just my body that hurt. It was the trust I had in her, the bond I thought was unbreakable. Since that day, I have been trying to piece together the broken parts of my heart. I miss the way things used to be, but I also know that I cannot live in the past. It is a place that only exists in memories. If I stay there too long, I will forget to live in the present. Still, the past teaches me important lessons. It shows me what I need to protect and what I must never take for granted. It reminds me to be kind to myself and to others. It teaches me the value of forgiveness, not just for others, but for myself too. Sometimes when I am alone, I speak to the past like it is a friend. I thank it for the good times and say goodbye to the pain. I tell it that I am ready to move forward, even if the road is difficult. I also think about the future, a future where I can find new joy and new reasons to smile. A future where I am stronger because of the challenges I have faced. A future where I am free from the shadows of betrayal and fear. Missing the past is a quiet sadness, but it does not have to stop me from living. It is a part of my story, a chapter that I carry with me. But it is not the whole book. As I close my eyes, I imagine the woman I was and the woman I am becoming. They are connected by the memories I hold dear, but also by the strength I have. Found inside, I do not know what tomorrow will bring, but I am ready to meet it with an open heart. I will cherish the past, live fully in the present, and hope for a brighter future. Because sometimes missing the past is not about loss. It is about love. Love that lasts, even through the hardest times. It was a quiet afternoon when I decided to call my old friend, Margaret. She has been a steady presence in my life for many years. When I feel lost or overwhelmed, her calm voice always helps me find peace. I knew that I needed someone to listen. Someone who would understand without judgment, Margaret answered on the second ring. Her voice was warm and familiar. "Helen, how are you?" she asked gently. I hesitated for a moment, then found myself telling her everything. The pain, the betrayal, and the loneliness that weighed on my heart. She did not interrupt. She let me speak, as if my words were important and needed to be heard. That simple act of listening made me feel less alone. "I do not know what to do anymore," I said softly. "I feel like everything is falling apart. Clara hurt me, and Daniel does not seem to care. I feel invisible in my own family," Margaret sighed quietly on the other end of the line. "That sounds very hard," she said. "But remember, you are not invisible to me, and I believe in your strength, even if you do not see it right now." Her words touched me deeply. It was the first time in weeks that I felt a small spark of hope. We talked for a long time. I shared my fears and my doubts. Margaret shared her own stories of struggle and healing. It was comforting to know that I was not alone in my pain. Many people face hardships, but it is how we face them that defines us. Margaret reminded me of something important. "You have survived so much already. Helen, you have faced betrayal and hurt, but you are still here. That means you have strength inside you, more strength than you realize." Her encouragement felt like a gentle hand lifting me up. I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could heal. We also talked about forgiveness. I told her that I was angry at Clara and Daniel, but I did not know if I could forgive them. Margaret said forgiveness is not about forgetting or accepting what happened. It is about freeing yourself from the pain that holds you back. That is hard to do, I admitted. But I want to try. Margaret suggested small steps. Start with forgiving yourself, she said. Be kind to yourself. Do not blame yourself for what happened. You did your best, and that is enough. Her advice stayed with me after our call ended. I began to practice kindness toward myself. When painful thoughts came, I reminded myself that I am worthy of love and respect. Talking to Margaret helped me see that I do not have to carry my burdens alone. Friends can be a light in the darkness, guiding us toward hope and healing. After our conversation, I felt a little lighter. The heavy weight on my chest was not gone, but it was softer. I knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was not walking it by myself. I also realized the importance of reaching out. When we are hurting, it can be tempting to hide away. But isolation only deepens the pain. Connection brings comfort and strength. That day, I made a promise to myself. I would find more moments to talk, to share, and to listen. Not just with Margaret, but with others who care. Sometimes healing begins with a simple conversation. A voice that says, I am here. I hear you. I am grateful for Margaret and the way she helped me begin to heal. She reminded me that even in the darkest times, there is light to be found. As I sit by the window now, I feel a quiet peace. It is not the peace of forgetting, but the peace of beginning again. I know that talking to a friend will not solve all my problems, but it has given me hope. Hope that I can rebuild my life. Hope that I can find joy again. This conversation was a turning point, a step toward healing, a step toward loving myself. And that is a journey worth taking. Saying goodbye is never easy. It feels like closing a chapter of your life that you thought would never end. But sometimes, saying goodbye is necessary for your own peace and healing. I came to this realization slowly, after many nights of quiet, thinking, and restless sleep. The day I decided to say goodbye, the air was cool and crisp. It felt like the world was preparing me for a new beginning. I packed a small bag with a few essentials, some clothes, a book, and a photo album filled with memories. I did not know where I would go, but I knew I needed to leave the place that held so much pain. Before I left, I took one last walk through the house. Every corner reminded me of the life I had built and the dreams I once had. The kitchen where I had cooked meals for my family, the living room where we laughed and talked, the stairs that had become a place of hurt. Each memory was sharp and bittersweet. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, feeling the weight of what had happened. Clara's betrayal was like a cold shadow that darkened my heart. But I also knew I could not let that shadow follow me forever. I needed to find light again. I sat down for a moment, breathing deeply. I told myself it was okay to feel pain. It was okay to cry. But it was also okay to say goodbye and move forward. When Daniel came home that evening, I was ready. I looked, him in the eyes, steady and calm. I am leaving, I said softly. I need to find myself again. This house, this life, it is not the same anymore. He looked surprised. For a moment, I thought he would beg me to stay. But he did not. He simply nodded, as if he understood more than I expected. Clara was not there. She had left early, probably, unaware of the storm she had caused. I packed the last of my things and closed the door behind me. I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for what I was leaving behind, relief for what I might find ahead. The first days were the hardest. I stayed with Margaret, my friend who had listened and supported me through everything. She welcomed me with open arms and a warm smile. Her home was a sanctuary, a place where I could rest without fear or judgment. At night, I often stared at the ceiling, feeling the silence. The quiet was strange after the noise of my old life. But slowly the silence became comforting. It gave me space to think and heal. I began to write in a journal, pouring out my thoughts and feelings. Writing helped me understand myself better. It was like talking to a friend who would never judge or interrupt. Each day, I took small steps toward healing. I went for walks in the park, breathed fresh air, and watched the leaves change color. Nature reminded me that change is part of life. Even when things seem hard, new growth is possible. I learned to be patient with myself. Healing is not a race. It is a slow and gentle process. Sometimes I thought about Clara and Daniel. I wondered if they regretted what happened. But I knew I could not wait for their apology or change. My healing depended on me, not them. Saying goodbye also meant letting go of anger and resentment. It was not easy to forgive, but I understood. Forgiveness was for my own peace, not theirs. I imagined myself as a bird, free and soaring above the clouds. I was leaving behind the cage of hurt and betrayal. It was time to fly. As the weeks passed, I found moments of joy. A cup of tea on a quiet morning, a kind word from a stranger, a beautiful sunset. These small moments were like sparks of light in my heart. I realized that saying goodbye was not just about leaving a place or people. It was about choosing myself, choosing my happiness, my peace, and my future. I am still learning to live in this new way. Some days are harder than others, but I am stronger now. I know I have the courage to face whatever comes next. Saying goodbye was the hardest decision I have ever made, but it was also the bravest. I do not regret it, because sometimes, to find yourself, you must first say goodbye. Being alone is not the same as feeling lonely. I have learned this truth slowly, and it is one of the most important lessons I have ever received. After I said goodbye and left the house that once held my pain, I found myself in a new world, a world where I was truly alone. For the first time in many years, I was not surrounded by family or the noise of conflict. The silence was deep and wide, and it was both frightening and healing. At first, I was scared. The quiet made me feel small and uncertain. I wondered if I had made a mistake by leaving. I missed the familiar sounds of life, even if they brought me pain. I missed the presence of others, even when they did not understand me. The nights were the hardest. When the world went dark, so did my thoughts. Memories of hurt, betrayal, and sadness filled my mind like an unwelcome fog. But slowly, something changed. In the stillness, I began to hear myself again. Not the voice that worried about others or tried to please everyone. Not the voice that felt weak or broken, but the quiet voice inside me that had been buried under years of struggle. That voice whispered truths I had forgotten. That I am strong, that I matter, that I deserve peace. Being alone gave me space to breathe deeply without fear. I took long walks in the early mornings, watching the sun rise over the quiet streets. I noticed the simple beauty of life, the way the light touched the leaves, the songs of birds starting their day. Nature taught me patience and hope. It reminded me that every day is a chance to begin again. I also spent time sitting in my room, simply being with myself. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I laughed softly at memories from my past. I allowed myself to feel whatever came without judgment. This freedom was new and strange, but it felt good. I began to understand that being alone was not a punishment. It was a gift. It was a chance to get to know who I really am, without anyone else's opinions or expectations clouding my view. I started to do things for myself that I had not done in years. I read books I loved, listened to music that made me feel alive, and cooked meals just the way I liked. These small acts of self-care became powerful reminders that I am worthy of kindness and respect. At times, loneliness tried to sneak back in. There were moments when I longed for a familiar face or a comforting word, but I learned to sit with these feelings without letting them control me. I reminded myself that feeling lonely is natural, but it does not define me. Being alone also gave me time to reflect on my past, on the choices I made, the people I trusted, and the lessons I learned. I saw clearly the mistakes and the moments of courage. I forgave myself for things I thought I should have done differently. I understood that I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. One evening, I looked in the mirror and saw a different woman. Not the scared, hurt woman who had left the house weeks before, but someone stronger, wiser, and more confident. My eyes held a new light, a quiet strength born from facing pain and choosing to move forward alone. I realized that being alone was teaching me resilience. It was teaching me to stand on my own 2 feet and trust myself. I felt proud of how far I had come, even if the journey was not yet over. I also discovered that being alone gave me a chance to dream again. Without the noise of conflict or disappointment, my heart felt lighter. I began to think about what I wanted for my future, not what others wanted for me. I allowed myself to imagine new possibilities and hope for happiness. In this time of solitude, I became my own best friend. I learned to listen kindly to my thoughts and treat myself with compassion. I stopped rushing to fix everything and allowed life to unfold at its own pace. I know that being alone does not mean I will always be lonely. It is a season, a chapter, a time to heal and grow. And when the time is right, I will open my heart to others again. But this time, with clearer eyes and a stronger spirit. For now, I am learning to enjoy my own company. I am learning that I am enough, just as I am. I am learning to be still, to listen, and to love myself. Being alone is not easy. It takes courage to face the silence and the shadows inside. But it is also a beautiful gift, a chance to find peace, strength, and hope. I am alone now, and I am ready to be. When I look back at the woman I was before, I see someone very different from who I am now. The pain, the confusion, the tears, they all shaped me, but they did not define me. I am not the same woman who once stood at the bottom of those stairs, feeling small and powerless. I have changed. I have grown. Change is not always easy. It is slow and sometimes painful, but it is also necessary. I have learned that growth comes from facing hardship, not avoiding it. Each difficult moment was like a step on a long staircase. At first, the climb was hard, and I wanted to give up. But I kept moving forward because I had no other choice. Now, I am higher up the stairs, and I can see things more clearly. I am stronger than I thought. The woman who once doubted herself now trusts her own voice. I listen to my feelings and respect my boundaries. I say no when something does not feel right. This was not easy at first. I was used to pleasing others and hiding my pain. But now, I choose myself. I choose my peace. I have also learned to forgive. Not to forget what happened, but to release the anger that held me back. Forgiveness is not for the person who hurt me. It is for me. It frees my heart from bitterness and allows me to heal. It is a gift I give to myself. My relationships have changed too. I see who truly cares for me and who does not. I have stopped trying to fix broken connections Instead, I focus on those that bring me joy and support. This has made my life quieter, but happier. I do not need to be surrounded by many people. I need to be surrounded by the right people. I have discovered new interests and passions. When I was caught in the storm of family conflict, I forgot about the things that once made me happy. Now, I paint again. I write in my journal. I take walks in the park and notice the small wonders of the world. These simple pleasures remind me that life is still beautiful, even after loss. One of the hardest changes has been learning to trust again. After betrayal, trust feels fragile and risky. But I know I cannot close my heart forever. I am learning to give trust slowly and carefully. I listen to my instincts and pay attention to actions, not just words. This protects me and helps me build healthier connections. I am more patient with myself. I do not expect to heal overnight or to be perfect. I accept that some days are harder than others. Some days I feel strong. Other days I feel tired. This is okay. Healing is not a straight path. It is a journey with ups and downs. I am also more aware of my feelings. In the past, I often pushed emotions away because they scared me. Now I allow myself to feel fully, whether it is sadness, anger, joy, or hope. Feeling deeply has made me more alive. It has helped me understand myself and others better. My view of the future has shifted. Before, I felt trapped by fear and uncertainty. Now, I see the future as a place of possibility. I do not know what lies ahead, but I believe I can face it. I am ready to build a new life, one step at a time. I have learned to set goals, even small ones. These goals give me direction and purpose. They remind me that I have control over my life. I may not be able to change the past, but I can shape my future. The woman I am now is more compassionate. I understand that everyone carries their own pain and struggles. This does not excuse bad behavior, but it helps me respond with kindness instead of anger. Compassion has softened my heart and opened new doors. I am proud of my journey. It has not been easy, but it has made me who I am. I am grateful for the strength I found inside myself, even when I did not believe it was there. I know I will continue to grow and change. Life is a process, not a destination. But I face the future with hope and courage. I am not the same woman I was before. I am better. I am whole. This new me is ready to live fully, love deeply, and forgive freely. I carry my scars like medals of honor. They remind me that I survived. They remind me that I am stronger than any challenge. I am not the same. I am more. In the quiet moments of the morning, when the world is still and soft, I began to notice something new. It was a small light, almost like a gentle glow inside me. At first it was barely there, a faint spark in the darkness, but it was enough to give me hope. After everything I had been through, hope felt like a stranger. It was hard to believe that anything good could come again. Yet, this small light quietly grew. It did not promise big changes or sudden happiness. It simply reminded me that I was still alive, that I still mattered. One day, I was sitting by the window, watching the sunlight move across the floor. The house was silent except for the soft ticking of the clock. I thought about the long months of pain and confusion. I thought about the times I had cried alone and the nights I had felt so lost. And then I felt that small light again. It was a feeling of peace. Not the kind of peace that erases problems, but a calm inside that no one could take away. I realized that even in the darkest times, a little light could shine through. It was a sign that I was healing. This small light gave me courage. It helped me take tiny steps forward. I started to open my heart again, just a little. I reached out to friends I had not spoken to in a while. I tried new activities that I had avoided. I smiled more, even when it was difficult. The light also showed me the beauty in small things. A warm cup of tea, the sound of birds singing, the way the wind moved the trees. These simple moments brought comfort and joy. They reminded me that life was still full of good things, even after loss. I remember one afternoon when I went for a walk in the park. The sun was shining and the flowers were blooming. I sat on a bench and watched children playing nearby. Their laughter was pure and free. It made me smile. As I sat there, I thought about how the small light inside me was like the sun on that day. It was not a huge fire, but a gentle warmth that could grow over time. I felt grateful for that moment, for the light that helped me see the world in a new way. The small light also gave me patience. I knew that healing was not fast. It would take time, and that was okay. I stopped rushing myself to feel better. Instead, I allowed myself to rest and to be kind to my own heart. Sometimes the light flickered. There were days when sadness returned, and the past felt close again. But I learned not to fear these moments. They were part of the journey. The light was still there, waiting patiently for me to find it again. I began to understand that hope is not a feeling you find once and keep forever. It is something you find again and again, even after you lose it. It is a choice you make every day to believe in tomorrow. This small light changed the way I saw myself. I was no longer just a woman broken by pain. I was a woman who had survived and was learning to live again. I was someone who could find joy in the little things and courage in the quiet moments. I started to dream again, but these dreams were different. They were not about fixing everything or changing the past. They were simple hopes for the future. To be happy, to be loved, to be free. These dreams felt real and possible. The small light helped me connect with others too. I found that when I shared my story, people listened. They saw my strength, not just my pain. It was a new kind of connection, built on honesty and trust. Sometimes, people would say to me, "You seem different now. What is your secret?" I would smile and say, "It is a small light inside me. It is hope." That small light was my companion in lonely times. It was a reminder that I was never truly alone. It gave me faith in myself and in the future. Now, when I face challenges, I look for that light first. It helps me find my way. It is the first step on any difficult road. I want you to know that no matter how dark life feels, a small light can always be found. It may be hidden or faint, but it is there. Sometimes, you just have to look a little harder. For me, that small light was the beginning of a new chapter. It was the gentle push I needed to keep moving forward. It was hope in its simplest, purest form. I do not know what tomorrow will bring, but I am ready to face it, because I have a small light inside me, and it will guide me through. Beginning again is not easy. It is like waking up after a long, dark night and learning to see the world with new eyes. For me, this moment came quietly, without fanfare. It was a decision made slowly, with care and hope. After months of pain, sadness, and confusion, I realized that I needed to take control of my life again. I could not wait for others to fix things or to make me happy. The power to start anew was inside me. I just had to reach for it. I started with small changes. I woke up earlier than usual and made a simple breakfast for myself. I did not rush. I took time to enjoy each bite and to feel grateful for the food. It was a small act, but it felt important. Next, I created a new routine. I found joy in little things, watering my plants, reading a book, or going for a walk around the neighborhood. These actions helped me feel grounded. They gave me a sense of order in a world that had felt chaotic. I also began to care for myself more deeply. I took long baths, listened to soft music, and wrote in my journal every evening. Writing helped me understand my feelings and to express thoughts I had kept inside for too long. It was a way to heal. For the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. I knew that beginning again would take time. It was not a single moment, but many small steps, each one building on the last. I learned to be patient with myself. I did not expect perfection. I allowed myself to make mistakes and to feel sad when memories came back. These feelings were part of the process, not signs of failure. One day, I decided to try something new. I signed up for a painting class at the community center. Art had always interested me, but I had never taken the time to explore it. The class was full of people of different ages, and the atmosphere was warm and welcoming. Painting was not easy at first. My hands trembled, and my first attempts were not beautiful, but I did not give up. I enjoyed the colors, the shapes, and the freedom to create without judgment. Through painting, I found a new way to express myself. I discovered that creativity could be a form of therapy. Each brushstroke was a small victory, a sign that I was moving forward. As I began again, I also worked on rebuilding relationships that had been broken. I reached out to a few old friends and family members who had shown kindness before. We talked slowly, with care. Some connections grew stronger. Others stayed distant. But I understood that healing relationships also takes time. Most importantly, I learned to set boundaries. I stopped allowing people to treat me poorly. Saying no was difficult, but necessary. I realized that I deserved respect and kindness. Starting again also meant dreaming again. I wrote down small goals for myself. Some were simple, like taking a day trip or learning to cook a new recipe. Others were bigger, like traveling or volunteering in my community. Each goal was a promise to myself, a way to look forward instead of back. They were reminders that life still held possibilities and that I had the power to choose my path. Sometimes I felt afraid. Fear of failure, fear of loneliness, fear of the unknown. But I faced these fears with courage. I told myself that it was okay to be afraid and that bravery meant continuing even when afraid. I began to notice changes in myself. I was stronger, more confident, and more at peace. I smiled more often. I laughed again. These simple acts felt like miracles after so much pain. One morning, as I sipped my tea, I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had survived storms and was ready for calm seas. I was not the same person I had been months ago. I was someone new, someone who had begun again. Beginning again was not a sign that I forgot the past. It was proof that I was learning from it and choosing to move forward. It was an act of hope, courage, and self-love. If you are listening and feel stuck, I want you to know that you can begin again too. It may be difficult, and the road may be long, but every small step counts. You do not have to do it all at once. Just start with one small change. Remember, beginning again is not about perfection. It is about trying, healing, and believing in the possibility of a better tomorrow. For me, this new beginning was the first chapter of a life rebuilt. A life where I could find joy, peace, and strength inside myself. And this time, I was ready to live fully, with an open heart and a clear mind. The day he tried to come back was one I never expected. After all the distance, the silence, and the pain, he appeared again, like a shadow from the past stepping into the present. I was not sure how to feel. Part of me was still guarded, and another part was curious. Was this real, or just another storm in my life? At first, he did not come with words of apology. Instead, he arrived with awkward silences and hesitant glances. It was clear he did not know what to say or how to act. I noticed his eyes searching mine, hoping to find something familiar, something that might still be there. I looked at him carefully. I saw the man who had hurt me deeply, but I also saw a man who seemed different, perhaps tired, perhaps regretful. I wondered if he had changed, or if this was just a new way to ask for forgiveness. He spoke softly, almost as if afraid to break the quiet. I know I have made mistakes. I cannot change the past, but I want to try to make things better. His words were honest, but I knew that words alone would not heal what had been broken. Trust takes time, and his actions had caused wounds that were slow to close. I did not answer immediately. Instead, I watched him carefully. I wanted to see if his behavior matched his words. Would he be patient? Would he respect my boundaries? Or would this be another moment of disappointment? He began to show small changes. He listened more, interrupted less, and tried to help without expecting anything in return. These were new behaviors, and I noticed them with cautious hope. Still, I remembered the pain he had caused. I knew that forgiveness is not forgetting. It is choosing to let go of anger so that you can find peace, I explained to him gently. If you want to come back, you must understand that it will take time. I am not the same person I was before. I need to see your actions, not just hear your words. He nodded slowly, as if he understood the weight of my decision. He said, I am willing to wait. I want to earn your trust again. During this time, I kept my focus on myself. I continued my new routines, my self-care, and my healing. I did not want to lose the progress I had made. Sometimes, he showed up unexpectedly with a kind gesture, a cup of tea, a note, or an offer to help around the house. These small acts were meaningful. They reminded me that change is possible, but only if it is sincere. However, there were moments when old habits tried to return. Sometimes, he would raise his voice in frustration or become impatient. These moments made me pull back. I knew that healing is not a straight line. There are ups and downs. One evening we had a long conversation. I told him about my fears, my hopes, and what I needed from him to feel safe. I shared how the past had hurt me and how much courage it took to try again. He listened without interrupting. After I finished, he said, I did not realize how much I had hurt you. I want to be better, for you and for myself. That night, I went to bed feeling hopeful, but still cautious. I knew that real change takes time, patience, and effort from both sides. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, the tension between us eased. We started to talk more openly and honestly. I found that I could laugh again with him, even if the memories of the past sometimes made my heart ache. He did not rush me. He respected my space. He asked how I was feeling and what he could do to help. I began to feel a small connection growing, but I reminded myself to stay strong. My happiness no longer depended on anyone else. It came from within me. There were times when I wondered if this was the start of a new chapter or a repeat of the old story. I decided to trust my instincts and watch carefully. He tried to rebuild, not only our relationship, but also the trust of others around us. He apologized to family members he had wronged and worked hard to make amends. I was proud of these changes, but I did not let them blind me. I kept my heart open but protected. Through this process, I learned that people can change, but only if they want to and work at it sincerely. I also learned that I deserve to be treated with respect and kindness, no matter what. When he tried to come back, I was not the same woman who had walked away. I was stronger, wiser, and more aware of my worth. I did not let fear or anger control me. Instead, I made decisions based on love for myself. This was not about revenge or punishment. It was about healing, growth, and understanding. In the end, whether he stayed or left again, I knew I would be okay. I had found strength in myself that no one could take away. If someone from your past tries to come back, remember to listen to your heart, but protect your peace. Healing takes time. Trust must be earned. And your happiness is the most important thing of all. When I looked at myself in the mirror one morning, I hardly recognized the woman staring back. The lines on my face told stories of pain, yes, but also of survival. The tired eyes no longer held only sadness. They shone with quiet strength. I realized that I was not the same person who had once been pushed down by those I loved. I was different now. Change does not happen quickly or easily. It sneaks in slowly, almost unnoticed. At first, it is a small shift, a thought, a feeling, a new way of seeing the world. Then it grows stronger. That is how it had been for me. I remember the early days after the fall down the stairs. I felt broken inside. I thought my life had ended. But slowly, something inside me began to rise. It was not anger or bitterness, but a gentle courage that whispered, "You are stronger than you think." This courage pushed me to look deeper at myself. I asked difficult questions. What had I learned from the pain? What did I want my future to look like? Who was I without the fear and hurt? I began to understand that my value was not tied to the approval of others. I was not less because I had been hurt. I was more because I had chosen to rise above it. I started to see my own worth clearly. I saw a woman who deserved respect, kindness, and love, not because she was perfect, but because she was human. This new awareness changed the way I moved through the world. I stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. I spoke up when something felt wrong. I protected my heart carefully, but I also opened it to new possibilities. One of the hardest parts was learning to trust myself again. After years of depending on others for validation, I realized that the most important voice was my own. I began to listen to my feelings, my needs, my dreams. I discovered that I was capable of making decisions that honored who I truly was. I did not have to follow the paths others set for me. I could create my own way. This did not mean I was perfect or without fear. Some days were still hard. Some memories still made me ache. But now I had tools to face those moments. I had learned how to be gentle with myself. I practiced patience and forgiveness, not just for others, but for myself. I understood that healing is not a straight road. There are bumps, detours, and sometimes steps backward. That is part of the journey. Being different now also meant embracing change without fear. I stopped clinging to the past or worrying about what others thought. Instead, I focused on the present moment and what I could do to make it better. I found joy in small things: a warm cup of tea, a walk in the park, a quiet evening with a good book. These simple pleasures reminded me that life is still beautiful, even after pain. I also learned to set boundaries. Saying no became a powerful act of self-care. I realized that I could not pour from an empty cup. Taking care of myself was not selfish. It was necessary. People around me noticed the change. Some were surprised. Others respected the new confidence I carried. I even saw a few people who had doubted me before begin to treat me with more respect. Most important, I felt peace within myself. I was no longer caught in the storm of anger and sadness. Instead, I stood firm, like a tree that had weathered many seasons. This strength did not come from revenge or trying to prove others wrong. It came from acceptance, accepting what had happened, accepting who I was now, and choosing to move forward. Realized that being different now was a gift. It meant I had grown through adversity. It meant I had learned lessons that no book or teacher could have given me. My heart was open to new beginnings. I was ready to build a life based on my own terms, with honesty, courage, and hope. I began to dream again, not about the past, but about the future I wanted to create. A future where I could be proud of myself and the woman I had become. If you are listening to this story, please remember that you too can be different. Pain and betrayal do not have to define you. You have the power to change, to heal, and to grow stronger. It may not be easy, and it may take time, but every small step you take toward yourself is a victory. You do not have to carry the weight of the past forever. You can choose to rise, to be gentle with your heart, and to trust your own strength. I am different now, and so can you be. Choosing myself was the most important decision I have ever made. For many years, I put others before me. I gave my time, my energy, and my love to people who did not always deserve it. I thought that was what I was supposed to do. I thought my value came from how much I sacrificed for others. But I was wrong. After everything that happened, after the pain and betrayal, I realized I needed to put myself first. This was not selfishness. It was self-respect. It was about caring for my own heart and soul. The moment I made this choice, a heavy weight lifted from my shoulders. It was as if I had been carrying a burden for so long that I forgot what freedom felt like. Choosing myself meant saying no to things that hurt me. It meant setting boundaries where I never had before. It meant listening to my own needs and honoring them. It was not easy at first. I worried what others would think. I worried I might lose people I cared about. But I learned that true love and respect come from acceptance, not sacrifice. I started small. I took time to rest when I felt tired. I said no to invitations when I needed quiet. I allowed myself to feel emotions without judgment. These simple acts felt revolutionary. I also began to rebuild my identity outside of the roles I had played for so long. Mother, wife, caregiver. I asked myself, who am I without these labels? What do I want from life now? Answering these questions was like opening a new door. I discovered passions I had forgotten. I remembered dreams I had set aside. I found joy in hobbies and activities that nourished my spirit. Choosing myself also meant forgiving. Not just forgiving others, but forgiving myself. I let go of guilt and regret that had weighed me down for years. I understood that I had done the best I could with the knowledge I had at the time. I practiced kindness toward myself. When I made mistakes, I spoke to myself as I would to a dear friend, with patience and compassion. This new relationship with myself changed everything. I felt stronger, calmer, and more confident. I was no longer afraid to stand up for what I needed. One of the biggest lessons was learning to trust my own voice. For so long, I doubted myself and looked to others for approval. Now, I listened to my intuition and believed in my decisions. I also learned that choosing myself was a continuous process. It was not a one-time event, but a daily commitment. Every morning, I reminded myself that my well-being mattered. Every evening, I reflected on how I had cared for my heart that day. This choice gave me freedom. Freedom from people-pleasing. Freedom from fear. Freedom from living a life that was not mine. It also opened the door to new possibilities. When I chose myself, I made space for happiness, growth, and healing. I met new people who respected and supported me. I reconnected with old friends who lifted me up. I found peace in solitude and joy in connection. Choosing myself did not mean I stopped loving others. It meant I loved myself enough to create healthy relationships. I no longer tolerated disrespect or cruelty. I learned to say no without feeling guilty. I learned to protect my energy and guard my heart. this was not always easy. Sometimes, old fears and doubts crept in. But I reminded myself of the woman I had become. A woman who deserved kindness, respect, and love. I began to dream bigger. I planned new adventures and set goals that excited me. I invested time in my health, my creativity, and my happiness. Choosing myself was a gift I gave to my future. It was a promise that I would never again lose myself for the sake of others. If you are listening to this story, I want you to know that you can choose yourself too. You do not have to stay in places or with people who harm you. You do not have to stay silent when your heart cries out. It may feel scary at first. You may worry about being alone or rejected. But I promise, choosing yourself is the beginning of true freedom. When you choose yourself, you open the door to healing. You find strength you never knew you had. You create a life that feels authentic and full. Remember, your well-being matters. Your happiness matters. Your dreams matter. You are worthy of love and respect, especially from yourself. So today, choose yourself. Choose your peace. Choose your joy. Choose your life, because you are worth it. Always. A new day began with a quiet calm that I had not felt in a long time. The sunlight spilled softly through the curtains, painting warm patterns across the floor. I opened my eyes slowly, feeling a gentle sense of peace inside me. It was not a peace that came from forgetting the past, but from surviving it. I smiled, not because I forgot, but because I was still here. The house was quiet except for the soft sounds of birds outside. I sat up in bed and took a deep breath. I could feel the fresh start in the air, the chance to begin again with a clean heart. The pain I carried had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled me. It was a part of my story, but it was not the whole story. I was more than my suffering. I was a woman who had learned, grown, and found strength. Today, I chose to welcome the new day with open arms. I got out of bed and walked to the window. The garden outside was waking up too. Flowers opened their petals toward the sun, and leaves danced gently in the breeze. It reminded me that life always moves forward, no matter what. I decided to make a simple breakfast. As I prepared the food, I noticed how small tasks could feel meaningful when done with care. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen. I poured a cup and sat at the table, savoring the warmth between my hands. I thought about the journey I had traveled, how much I had lost and how much I had gained, the loneliness, the tears, the moments of doubt, and now, the hope, the courage, and the new beginnings. There was no rush, no pressure to fix everything at once, just the gentle rhythm of a new day, moving forward step by step. I took out my journal and began to write. Writing had become a way to understand myself better. It was a place to pour out feelings, dreams, and fears without judgment. The words on the paper helped me see the light, even in the darkest moments. I wrote about my fears for the future, but also about my hopes. I wrote about how I wanted to live with more kindness, especially toward myself. I wrote about the dreams I wanted to follow now that I had found my strength. As I wrote, I felt a soft joy growing inside. It was the joy of freedom, the freedom to choose my own path. Later, I took a walk in the nearby park. The fresh air was cool and clean. I watched children playing, couples walking hand in hand, and elderly friends chatting on benches. Life was moving all around me. I realized that my life was part of this flow. I was connected to the world, even when I felt alone. The world was full of new chances and new people. I did not have to stay trapped in the past. The walk helped clear my mind. I felt lighter and more open. I noticed the small details, the sound of leaves underfoot, the bright colors of the flowers, the laughter of children. These simple things felt precious and real. When I returned home, I made a plan. Not a strict schedule, but gentle intentions. I decided to spend more time outside, to connect with old friends, and to try new hobbies. I promised myself to take care of my body and my mind. I also thought about forgiveness. Forgiving those who had hurt me was still hard, but I wanted to try. Not for them, but for me. Forgiveness was a way to let go of anger and pain. It was a way to heal. I knew that healing would take time. It would come in small moments, not all at once, but I was ready to begin. That evening, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. The sky was painted with soft pink and orange colors. I watched as the sun slowly disappeared behind the trees. The new day had passed, and I felt grateful for it. Grateful for the chance to live. Grateful for the chance to love myself. Grateful for the strength I found inside. I whispered a quiet promise to myself. I will keep moving forward. I will keep choosing joy. I will keep believing in a better tomorrow. A new day is a gift. It is a chance to grow, to heal, and to create the life we want. I am learning to open my heart to this gift every morning. If you are listening to this story, I hope you will find your own new day too. No matter what happened before, no matter how hard it was, you can start again. You can find peace and hope. Take a deep breath. Look at the sky. Feel the fresh air. Let yourself believe in new beginnings. Because every new day is full of promise. It is full of life. And you are still here. You are still strong. That is something to smile about. Today, I want to share a simple but important truth I have learned. Saying thank you can heal the heart. It may sound small, but gratitude has become a powerful part of my journey. I have found that when I say thank you, I am not just being polite. I am honoring the path I have walked and the people who helped me along the way. There were many moments when I felt lost, weak, and alone. Yet, even in those dark times, there were small lights. Kind words from friends, quiet support from strangers, or just the courage I found inside myself. Saying thank you is a way to recognize those lights and keep them shining. This morning, I sat quietly with a cup of tea. The sun was soft, and the world felt calm. I thought about the people who touched my life. First, I thanked myself. Yes, it sounds strange, but it is true. I thanked myself for being brave enough to face pain, for standing up when I wanted to fall, for choosing to keep going, even when it was hard. I realized that I had been my own harshest critic. I had blamed myself for things that were not my fault. I had doubted my worth and my strength. But today, I chose to say thank you to the woman who never gave up. That felt like a gift. Next, I thought of my friends. There were a few who stayed close when others turned away. They listened without judging. They held my hand in silence. I said thank you to them, even if I never told them before. Their kindness was a lifeline. It reminded me that I was not alone. Sometimes, gratitude can be hard. When we have been hurt deeply, it is natural to feel anger or sadness. But I have learned that saying thank you does not mean forgetting the pain. It means choosing to see the good as well. It means holding both pain and hope in the same heart. I also thanked my family, not because everything was perfect, but because they were part of my story. Even difficult relationships teach us lessons. Even betrayal shows us where our boundaries are. I thanked them for the love I once felt and for the strength I found when that love was tested. As I thought about gratitude, I remembered a small moment from long ago. It was a rainy afternoon, and I was feeling hopeless. A stranger offered me a smile and a kind word. That simple act stayed with me. It gave me hope when I needed it most. I said thank you to that stranger in my heart. Gratitude is not only about big things, it is about noticing small kindnesses every day. A cup of tea, a sunny morning, a gentle breeze. These small gifts remind us that life continues to offer beauty, even in hard times. Saying thank you also helped me see the changes inside myself. I was becoming more patient. I was learning to listen better, to others and to my own heart. I was growing more aware of the simple joys that I once overlooked. I realized that gratitude is a practice, like exercise or meditation. It takes time and effort to change old habits. Some days, it is easy to be thankful. Other days, it feels impossible. But every time I try, I feel a little lighter. This journey taught me that gratitude can open doors. It can heal wounds. It can bring peace to a restless mind. When I say thank you, I'm inviting hope back into my life. I encourage you, if you're listening, to try this simple practice. Take a moment to say thank you, to yourself, to someone you love, or even to a stranger. Notice how it feels. Notice the warmth that can grow inside. Gratitude does not erase pain, but it softens it. It helps us remember that life is not only about struggle. It is also about connection, love, and growth. Today, I am grateful for the chance to tell my story, for the courage to share my truth, for the people who listen with open hearts. Thank you to you for being here with me, for hearing my voice and walking part of this journey together. We all need kindness. We all need hope. And sometimes, the greatest kindness begins with a simple thank you. I feel stronger today because I have learned to say these words. They are not just words. They are keys that unlock the heart. As I close this chapter of my story, I carry gratitude with me. It is a light I will keep holding, even in the darkest nights. Thank you for your time, your patience, and your understanding. May you find reasons to say thank you every day, and may your heart always have room for hope. Forgiveness is a word I used to think was only for others. I believed that forgiving someone else meant letting them off the hook. But now I understand it is much deeper than that. Forgiving myself has been one of the hardest, yet most important, steps in my journey. For many years, I carried a heavy burden of guilt and regret. I blamed myself for things that went wrong in my family. I wondered if I had done enough, said the right words, or acted differently. The questions never stopped. Why did I trust him? Why did I stay so long? Why did I not see the truth sooner, at night? These questions haunted me. I felt ashamed and weak. I told myself that I was to blame for the pain. I thought if only I had been stronger, smarter, or braver, things would have been different. This self-blame made the pain worse. It tied me to the past and stopped me from moving forward. One quiet afternoon, I sat alone and realized something important. I was punishing myself unfairly. I was holding on to mistakes that I could not change. I was forgetting that I had done the best I could with what I knew at the time. No one is perfect. No one has all the answers. I took a deep breath and said, to myself, I forgive you. At first it felt strange and almost impossible. How could I forgive myself for the hurt I felt inside? But the more I repeated those words, the lighter I felt. It was as if a heavy chain around my heart was beginning to break. Forgiveness is not about forgetting or pretending the pain did not happen. It is about accepting that we are human and that we make mistakes. It is about giving ourselves permission to heal. When I forgave myself, I stopped being my own enemy. I also realized that forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. Some days I feel strong and kind to myself. Other days, old doubts and fears try to return. But each time, I come back to forgiveness. I remind myself that healing takes time. This journey taught me to speak to myself with kindness. Instead of harsh words and blame, I try to use gentle and encouraging words. I tell myself, "You are worthy, you are enough, you are growing." These words feel strange at first, but they slowly become true. I also learned that forgiving myself helped me forgive others. When I stopped blaming myself, I was able to see my family in a new light. I saw their struggles, their fears, and their mistakes. I understood that everyone is doing their best, even when they hurt others. Self-forgiveness gave me freedom. It opened the door to peace. It allowed me to let go of anger that was hurting only me. When I forgave myself, I could finally breathe. Again, I want to share something important with you if you are listening. If you carry guilt or blame inside, know that you are not alone. Many of us do. But holding on to these feelings only makes the pain heavier. Forgiveness is a gift you can give yourself. Start small. Say kind words to yourself each day. Remember that mistakes do not define you. They are part of learning and growing. Be patient. Healing is like planting a garden. It takes time to see the flowers bloom. I also found help in writing my thoughts down. Sometimes I wrote letters to myself. I told my story honestly, without judgment. Writing helped me understand my feelings and gave me space to release them. If you find it hard to say forgiveness aloud, try writing it first. Another thing that helped me was talking to a trusted friend. Sharing my feelings without fear of judgment made me feel less alone. Sometimes, just hearing the words, "I understand," can be healing. I am still learning every day. Forgiveness is not a straight path. There are days when I feel proud and free. There are days when I feel sad or doubtful. But the important thing is to keep trying, to keep being gentle with myself. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see a woman who has survived many storms, a woman who has made mistakes but who has also found strength and courage. I see someone who deserves kindness, especially from herself. Forgiving myself has been a turning point. It changed the way I see my past and my future. It gave me hope that no matter what happens, I can heal and grow. I hope my story helps you too. If you are carrying pain or guilt, remember that forgiveness is possible. You are worthy of it. You are worthy of peace. Thank you for listening to this part of my journey. I am grateful to share these moments with you. Together, we can learn to forgive and to love ourselves more each day. Freedom is a feeling I never thought I would experience again. After all the pain, the betrayal, and the long nights filled with tears, I finally found myself standing in a place of true freedom. It is not the kind of freedom that comes from a big event or a loud celebration. No, this freedom is quiet, gentle, and deeply healing. For many years, I felt trapped by my own fears and doubts. I was imprisoned by the memories of what had happened and by the harsh words that once echoed in my mind. I thought freedom meant escaping from others, but I have learned that real freedom begins inside. It begins when you release the chains you have placed on your own heart. One morning, I woke up early and went outside to the garden. The air was fresh and cool. The sun had just started to rise, painting the sky with soft colors of pink and gold. I took off my shoes and walked barefoot on the grass. The coolness touched my skin, and I felt a connection to the earth beneath me. It was a small moment, but it was full of meaning. Walking barefoot, I felt the ground supporting me. It was as if the earth was reminding me that I am strong and that I belong. In that moment, I understood what freedom truly is. Freedom is feeling safe in your own skin. It is feeling calm even when the world around you is loud or difficult. I danced slowly in the garden, with no music but the birds singing in the trees. I let my arms move freely, and my heart felt light. Dancing like this was not about showing anyone else how I moved. It was about expressing my joy and my healing. It was a way of saying, I am here. I am alive. This freedom I feel also means that I am no longer a prisoner of the past. I have forgiven those who hurt me, and more importantly, I have forgiven myself. I am no longer carrying the heavy weight of anger or sadness. I have opened my heart to new possibilities. Freedom has taught me to be present, to live in the moment without fear of what might come next. I watch the sun rise and set. I listen to the gentle breeze and the laughter of children nearby. I feel grateful for simple things that I once took for granted. I also feel free to be myself without fear. For many years, I hid parts of who I am because I was afraid of judgment or rejection. But now, I stand tall and proud of the woman I have become. I embrace my strengths and my weaknesses. I know that both are part of my story. Being free also means setting boundaries. It means saying no when something does not feel right. It means protecting my peace and choosing who I allow in my life. I have learned that freedom is not just about saying yes to everything. It is about choosing wisely. There is a peace that comes with freedom, a calmness that soothes the soul. It is not loud or flashy. It is quiet and steady, like a river flowing gently through a forest. This peace gives me the strength to face each new day with hope. Freedom has given me the courage to dream again. I think about the future without fear. I imagine new adventures and new friendships. I see opportunities that I never noticed before. I realize that life still holds many surprises, and I am ready to receive them. I want to share something with you. If you feel trapped by pain, sadness, or fear, know that freedom is possible. It may take time and courage, but it can be found. Start by being kind to yourself. Take small steps every day to release what holds you back. Find moments to connect with nature or to do something that brings you joy. Listen to your heart and trust your feelings. Freedom begins with love. Love for yourself and for the life you deserve. When I think back to the days when I felt lost and alone, I see how far I have come. I am grateful for the journey, even with its hardships. Each step has brought me closer to this place of freedom. Thank you for walking this path with me. I hope my story gives you hope and courage. Remember, you have the power to be free. You can choose peace. You can choose joy. Knowing who I am has been a journey, not a destination. It is something I have slowly uncovered after the storms of pain and betrayal. For a long time, I felt lost. I allowed others to define me by their words, their judgments, and their actions. But now, I stand in the light of my true self, and I feel whole. When I was younger, I believed that my worth depended on others' approval. I tried to be the perfect daughter, the caring mother, and the helpful wife. I wanted to be liked and respected. But in trying to please everyone, I lost myself. There was a time when I forgot what made me happy. I put aside my dreams and my passions. I silenced my own voice because I thought it was not important. It took many painful moments to realize that the most important person in my life is me. Through all the challenges I faced, especially the betrayal by my son's wife, I learned something important. I learned that my identity is not based on what others think of me. It is not built on their acceptance or rejection. My identity is inside me. It is the collection of my experiences, my values, and my dreams. I spent many quiet hours reflecting on my life. I asked myself, who am I beyond the roles I play? What do I truly want? What makes me feel alive? These questions helped me peel away the layers of doubt and fear. I remember sitting by the window one afternoon, watching the leaves fall from the trees. It was autumn, a season of change. I realized that, like the trees, I could let go of the old and prepare for new growth. It was a powerful thought. It meant I could leave behind the pain and still grow stronger. Knowing who I am also means accepting my flaws. I am not perfect. I have made mistakes. I have hurt others, sometimes without meaning to. But I do not let my mistakes define me. Instead, I learn from them and become better. I understand now that my strength comes from my imperfections. It is my struggles that have shaped me. They have taught me patience, empathy, and courage. I am proud of the woman I have become. Because she is real and honest, I have also discovered my passions again. I love reading, painting, and spending time in nature. These activities fill me with joy and peace. They remind me that I am more than my past or my family troubles. I am a person with dreams and talents. Knowing who I am has changed how I see my relationships. I no longer depend on others to feel complete. I appreciate the people who support me, but I do not need their approval to be happy. I choose to surround myself with those who lift me up and respect my boundaries. This new self-awareness gives me confidence. I can speak my truth calmly and clearly. I can say no when something is not right for me. I listen to my feelings and trust my intuition. There are moments when old fears still visit me. Sometimes I doubt myself or worry about what others think. But I remind myself that these thoughts are just passing clouds. They do not change the sun that shines inside me. I want to share something important with you. Knowing who you are is a gift you give yourself. It takes time and patience, but it is worth every moment. Do not rush the process. Allow yourself to explore and discover without judgment. Be curious about your feelings and your desires. Write down your thoughts, try new hobbies, and spend time alone to listen to your heart. It is in these quiet moments that your true self will emerge. I hope my story encourages you to find your identity and to embrace it fully. You are more than your challenges. You are a beautiful, unique person with much to offer the world. As I prepare to close this chapter, I feel a deep sense of peace. I am no longer defined by the pain I endured. I am defined by my strength, my love, and my growth. I am proud to say, I know who I am. Thank you for walking with me on this journey. I hope that by sharing my story, I have helped you believe in your own power and worth. Remember, your identity is your treasure. Protect it, cherish it, and never be afraid to show it to the world. As I reach the end of my story, I want to speak directly to you. This journey I have shared is not just mine. It belongs to many who have faced hardship, betrayal, and loneliness. It belongs to those who have struggled to find their own voice and strength. If you are listening now, perhaps you feel lost or hurt. Maybe you have been pushed down by others, or you have doubted your own worth. I want you to know one thing clearly. You are not alone. Your feelings are real, and your pain is valid. Life can be very hard. Sometimes people who should love us the most let us down. They may hurt us with words or actions. They may not see our value or respect our feelings. But even when the world seems cold, there is a light inside you that cannot be taken away. That light is your spirit. It is your hope, your dreams, and your courage. It is the part of you that says, I will keep going. No matter what has happened, that light can grow brighter every day. I want to encourage you to be gentle with yourself. Healing takes time. It is not a straight path. There will be good days and bad days. There will be moments of doubt and moments of joy. This is normal. Allow yourself to feel. Do not hide your tears or your fears. Sharing your feelings can be a powerful step toward healing. Talk to someone you trust. Write down your thoughts. Find small ways to care for yourself. You deserve kindness, from others and from yourself. Treat yourself as you would treat a dear friend. Speak to yourself with love and encouragement. Remember that you are worthy of happiness. Another important message I want to share is about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not easy. It does not mean forgetting or excusing the hurt. It means freeing yourself from the burden of anger and pain. Holding on to bitterness can weigh you down. It keeps you trapped in the past. Forgiveness opens the door to peace. It allows you to move forward with your heart lighter and your mind clearer. Forgiving others is a gift you give yourself. It is a way to say, I will not let this pain control my life. And when you are ready, do not forget to forgive yourself. We all make mistakes, but we all deserve a chance to grow and heal. I want you to know that your story matters. Your experiences, your struggles, and your victories are important. Do not be afraid to share your truth when you feel safe. Your voice can inspire others and create connection. Remember that you have power within you. Power to choose how you respond to life's challenges. Power to set boundaries and protect your peace. Power to rebuild your life in a way that brings you joy and meaning. No matter your age, no matter your past, you can create a future that feels good for you. It will not always be easy, but it will be worth it. As I close this story, I hope you carry with you a sense of hope and strength. I hope you see yourself as I see myself now, as someone worthy, strong, and full of potential. Thank you for listening with your heart. Thank you for believing in the possibility of a better tomorrow. Life is a journey of learning and growing, and every step forward is a victory. Before we finish, I have a small request. If this story has touched your heart, please consider subscribing. Your support means more than words can say. It helps us continue sharing stories that heal and inspire. Wherever you are tuning in from, I send you warmth and encouragement. May you find the courage to stand tall, the grace to forgive, and the joy of knowing who you truly are. This is not the end, but a new beginning, for me and for you.